Alright, thanks a lot, guys, for joining me. This will be an informal conversation. We'll try to keep it as interesting as possible. So, today I have with me Samyak, who's the APM at Atlassian. We have Sanket, who's the APM at Grow, and Swati, who's an APM at Flipkart. I'm Ashwin, I'm a product analyst at Udan. So, today I have just the right mix of people. Atlassian is a well-established international company with a very good product culture. Grow is an upcoming product, so the product culture at Grow is upcoming. And Flipkart was one of the pioneers of the APM programs in India. And Udan is again an upcoming product culture kind of company. So why don't you walk me through maybe some brief intro about yourself or which team you're working on, right? I'll start, just to set an example, I'll start. So I'm working at Udan, I'm in the credit arm of Udan. We provide working capital solution to MSMEs. I'm the product analyst there. And it's been about 1 year since I've started working at Udan.
Yeah. Hello everyone, I'm Samyak. I'm an APM at Atlassian and I work in the commerce side of things, which is everything around billing, subscriptions, refunds, trial extensions, blah blah blah, over the entire suite of products that Atlassian has. If you know some of them, like Jira, Trello, Status Page, Opsgenie, Confluence, to name a few. So yeah, that's like a very high level overview of what team I'm in. Those are the things that I tend to do.
So I work in the growth team at Grow, and what the growth team does is look at acquiring new users through various channels, and they also look at increasing engagement for existing users. So how do you increase the number of transactions per user? How do you increase the number of products that they are invested in, and so on. I personally look at referrals and acquisition. So that comprises of the referral program that we have, where an existing user on Grow can invite their friends and be rewarded for doing so. And we're also venturing a bit into social, where we're trying to introduce a social element into the whole program.
Hi everyone, I'm Swati. I'm a part of Flipkart data platform. It is an internal product, so the data from the entire ecosystem is ingested into this product. It is processed and it is consumed using this product only. So as of now, it's a tool which is used by employees of the company to track all of their data. And personally, I'm trying to improve the user experience around it, since it's used by a variety of personas, right from tech-heavy users to business users who are not very comfortable with that. So yeah, that's a summary of what I do.
How did you prepare for this role?
So a large chunk of my preparation happened during my hunt for a summer internship, and during the time I was enrolled in the appraise program, and a bit before that, I think that's when I really started preparing in some sense. And after that,
So appraised, you'll have to introduce what is appraised.
okay, I'll have to. Okay, appraise had a good game at like explaining people who they are, but appraise is this program, and it started out I think during the year we were in.
Yeah, I think this was the first product forward.
Yeah, so we were part of the first APM cohort, which basically took what 35 folks across tier 1 colleges mostly, and yeah, so we were fortunate enough to be a part of that cohort, and we were like shortlisted through our campus placement cells. So they had like their own entrance app by an app, and using that they shortlisted us, and after that they prepared us in different domain subsets of what product management is, what it entails, how do you prepare user journeys, and how do you prepare for interviews and things like that. So it was like a 2-3 month long journey for us to like get from zero to at least somewhere that we can do well at our respective product internships. After which we were allowed to like sit for placements in some sense. So Appraise had a lot of interviews set up for us from various startups in India and outside of India as well. So we got to sit for them, and all of us secured an internship via that. So, like I personally went to this startup based in New York called Plaza, and so
So that is about Appraised. And what else helped you prepare for this role?
yeah. So like this was, I guess, the 50% of.
Okay, so Appraised was the major chunk.
Yeah, it was a major chunk because like it was during that time when I got to know that there are certain frameworks to answer a product question. There are certain things that you need to do, certain things which you don't need to do, and like that's when I got a like good idea of what an APM role actually is, what it entails, what like that you don't really need to code, but maybe like you have to be close to engineers, things like that. And then after that, it was during my fourth year when I like got back into the preparation of APM rules. Some of them which came to our campus. I think all of us like prepared for Flipkart APM at some point, and Swati made it through. And I think it was during that time I like got back like interview prep, and during my last semester of college, I prepared, like sent out my profile to a lot of startups who were hiring for product roles. So yeah, like that was.
So this was not through campus.
Yeah, my placement was not through campus. So kind of.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
I think Appraised helped you, and you sort of referred back to the notes at the time of your placement.
Yeah,
and you sort of applied off campus.
Yeah, so it was all about sending your profiles to dozens and dozens of companies and expecting some reply for them.
Sanket, how did you prepare?
So I think same here. I started preparing for PM interviews in general when I was looking for an internship. So I got one at 1MG, and after that I did one more PM internship, and then when I in my final year of college when I started looking for jobs, same thing. So numbers came to I started applying at a lot of places. So I had a few offers, and so I didn't do anything specifically for Grow, but in general for PM interviews, I think the best thing to do is to have a lot of mock interviews. So that is what I primarily did, and I think Grow seemed the best option. So yeah, I joined Grow.
My prep also started in my pre-final year while I came across Appraised, and that is how I explored the domain of PMing. Post that, I think for mock interviews, I did a lot of practice while I was a part of Appraised because we had a lot of peer-to-peer mocks.
Yeah.
So that was one thing which helped a lot. After that, in MX Clear, like my internship was at MX Clear, the one I secured through Appraised. I got some exposure to what a product analyst does because it was a mix of product manager, product analyst. So that was the second part of it. The third part of it would be preparing for the Flipkart interview. So for that, I think I reached out to many people to have mock interviews with them. I tried to reach out to people who were preparing with me, as well as people who had already gone through the interview cycle once, or people who were already in the industry who were product managers. So having the right mix of people to do case interviews with, I think helped me a lot during my preparation. Samyak also helped a lot during that time.
Right. And this was the time of your placement.
Yes, yes. So after MX Clear, I had a PPO in hand, but since like I was really keen on getting into Flipkart, I dedicated a month or 45 days specifically to preparing for this particular roles interview. So I would do 3 to 4 cases every day with different people, and that is how I prepared for it.
That's the kind of dedication one requires for cracking the Flipkart APF.
It's not easy.
Definitely not easy. And Flipkart visits only given set of I think 7 to 8 campuses every year, right? And this year it probably went to even lesser number of campuses. So and what do you dislike about product? Let me just change the. So it's all about. So we've been highlighting that this is good in product. We've been, we are setting an example that product is really great. It takes a lot to probably get there, but there has to be something that we dislike in product, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think. It is interesting because there are some things which I like about product, and at the same time I dislike them, like the same aspects. So one is ownership. I think as PM, so right now what I'm doing is I'm like sort of leading an initiative around the customer advocates that we have at our company. So we are like building a product to improve their ways of working, and that means there's a lot of ownership around around what I do. So in some sense, I have a lot of influence over what goes into a product. But at the same time, it's like a two-sided thing, because on the flip side, if anything goes south, then you are the first person to be like held accountable. That why was it not working, and what would you do about it? So like then you collect your team, and it doesn't go to the engineers. So we are the people who take the blow for them, and it happens. Like a lot of times, especially especially at our organization where there are a large number of teams, and it's a little hard for you to communicate what works and like what's going on in the other team. So you sort of have to make sure that you guys are all on the same page, and like everything that is dependent to your particular team is working the way it should, and if it doesn't, then you are the first person to sort of take charge. So yeah, like that is one, and what another one.
Yeah, Swati, why don't you go next?
I think so. When a lot of stakeholders are involved, so I think for early stage startups, that this might not be the case because there are very few people in the team and things are very fast
Yeah.
moving. But in Flipkart, I think a lot of stakeholders are involved, so things can be very slow moving sometimes because you need to convince a lot of people that okay, this needs to be done, and you need to be patient while everyone is coming to a consensus that okay. Many a times they might not even prioritize what you want to do. So I think things can be frustrating sometimes, and you need to be very patient sometimes.
Because of a lack of structure is what you're saying, right?
No, not lack of structure. There are a lot of people who need to be convinced that what you're trying to do is what needs to be done. So since the stakeholders are many, you need to, keep the team together and move forward with a lot of them. You can't leave people behind, and since you have the ownership of the product, you cannot just get whatever you want done.
Understood. So I think one thing I dislike about product is and this is good also. Every day I'm doing something new, but that means that there are no boundaries. One day I'm looking at product marketing, the other day I'm sort of trying to look at product analytics. So there's a lack of structure to some extent, which is good for learning purposes, but it can be frustrating because we are not getting good at one thing. We are trying to wear all hats. We're trying to do everything all at once, right?
Yeah, begin from zero all over again.
Yeah, so you do not specialize, that's my understanding, right? And specialization has a lot of value in today's world. But we do everything, we go from 0 to 1, but we don't go from 0 to 100 in any particular, let's say, in product analytics or any particular field within product. That's my take. Thank you, what about you?
I think stakeholder management is something I find cumbersome at times, because sometimes you just want to put your head down and work, okay, this is what I want to do, but then there are 10 people you need to tell, okay, this is what we should do, and then you need to carry them along on the journey, right, of the product. It's not like, okay, this is what we're doing, and then you start. You need to give them updates, you need to tell them what is happening, what is not happening, what is working, what is not working. And at the end, even when you ship, everyone needs to be on the same page. Okay, so this is what we did, this was the expected impact, and this is what actually happened. So that can get a little tiring at times. I think that is primarily what I dislike sometimes.
Chaos is always one Slack notification away.
Yeah. I think one more thing is the ability. You don't really have an off switch. You will get a customer support query, and you have to drop everything and go to that, no matter where, whether you're working on something else, whether you're at home, whether it's Sunday. But that is something that a lot of other positions don't have to deal with. But it's a part of the job, I guess.
So this was an easy question. Now let me try to, because we all dislike something or the other about whatever
It
field
comes to you, like
and it just comes to you. You don't have to think as such. Right?
Yeah.
But here you'll have to think. If you had to describe your approach to product management in one word, what would it be, and why? So,
You start.
Yes.
You set an example for us.
So I think a very good example is stakeholder management.
Yeah.
That's one phrase. But we need to convince everyone, right? Whenever I want to build something, whenever I want to add a new feature, I'll have to start with the business team. I'll have to convince them. Then I'll move to senior product managers. I'll have to convince engineers to build this, which is probably the most important part. And I'll have to convince the designers to sort of design it that way, right? So that convincing is, I think, is the most important part of the job for me, and that's my approach. I'm a good convincer that way, right? So, yeah. What about you?
So I remember this adage that we used to talk a lot about when I was in the speed cubing community. So that involves basically solving twisty puzzles as fast as possible. It used to go like slow down and look ahead, and I think that also in some ways applies to a PM role because at some point you have to slow down. You cannot just brute force your way and ship your product altogether. You have to like look at all the dependencies, all the disturbances it might create for other engineering teams, so that they are also prepared well in advance of what's coming. And at the same time, you have to think ahead of the pack, like a quarter, 2 quarters, and year, 2 years down the line, depending on your basically the impact of your product and how large is the effect of what you do. So I think that is an important part of a product role because otherwise your team might not have the direction and they can like pick up 10 problems at once. So prioritizing what's important for the next year or so, because our program right now deals a lot with enterprise shift to cloud customers. So because Atlassian has a lot of legacy customers who are still operating on these data center software, and we are like trying to shift them all to a cloud infrastructure. And so this is a program which is like 3 years long, and it might go a little longer, but we have to like make sure that we are taking the right steps so that we are not burdening ourselves with extra work, because this is a long program already and we don't want to make it difficult for us as well as the users who are impacted.
So the one word here is take it slow.
And look ahead as well, and like look ahead well in advance so that you know what's coming and you can inform the engineering teams. Otherwise, you might go back and forth on architecture.
Understood. That is one sentence, by the way, but I'll give it to you. Yeah, Sanket.
If I just had to choose one word, I think I would probably ask. So when you're building something, you need to ask.
That's deep.
You need to ask questions, right? Okay, who needs this? Is this worth solving? So you need to talk to your customers, ask them questions, and then you also need to talk to your team. And if you're trying to convince someone, you need to ask them, okay, is this something you would like to work on? Is this something you want to build? I think a lot of product management is just asking, and asking for help is a big one because a lot of the times you don't know what you're doing. So you need to ask people who are specialists in that role. It can be someone within the org or outside the org, but ask for help is like a huge thing that I didn't get initially. I thought, okay, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to know this inherently, but that's not the case. So asking for help is actually a skill, something that I learned later on. But yeah, I think my approach would be just ask.
Makes a lot of sense. I think help will be given to those who ask for it. So there is always someone who's ready to help you.
Yeah.
I would say like this is something which I still lack in my approach, but this is where I aim to be, which is knowing the right people. As I think it is an extension of what Sanket said, that you need to ask for help, but then you also need to know who to go to, who can get it done in the least amount of time and the most effective way. So I think if you know the right people to go to, things will be very easy for you. Right from your mentor to your stakeholders, just know the right person to go to.
Alright. What are the thoughts on early stage product management? So I think there's a particular set of skills that APM should have. What's the most important skill that an APM should have?
Asking for help is definitely a big one.
Right.
Because as an early stage PM, early career PM, you don't really know what you're doing, to put it bluntly. And you're just like put in the middle of chaos, and like there are folks who are doing their thing, and you often don't get the time to, let's say, talk to them and understand what they're working on and how could you like help them. And APM to begin with is a very helper role where you are like working with a senior PM or a PM to do a lot of things and you really don't know what's going on. So I think it's about asking questions as much as possible to different kinds of people, not only PMs but engineers, like, researchers and whatever. So that is one. Another thing I think is talking to users if possible.
I think I was about to say that.
Okay, I stole your thing. Sorry, but yeah, like that bit is important because as an APM, we're expected to know your users better than anyone else. Because a lot of people who are working as senior PMs or group PMs, they really don't see the ground level reality, which is where you come in and you reflect that. So yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. Depends on whether it's a B2B or a B2C, but I think talking to your customers is really important. Many times we assume something, and that assumption is nullified only basis if you talk to customers, right? So I think talking to customers is really important. And many times, like you mentioned, other people don't do that. So it's essentially our responsibility to sort of talk to customers. Whenever we release a new feature, we are trying to build something new, or let's say feedback purposes, anything. For example, in your case, talking to people within Flipkart, right?
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with people of very different personas, and those are people you can't really relate to instinctively. So I think it gets all the more important in a B2B product that you go and talk to your customers, because in a B2C product you might be the user of that product as well, but in a B2B that might not be the case. So it's all the more important to know.
For example, I think this makes a lot of sense, and I'll give an example as well, right? We give credit solutions to shopkeepers, retailers, distributors, right? So their way of thinking is slightly different, and they're not as tech savvy as us, maybe, right? Although they have smartphones, they have everything. It's only when you talk to these people you realize that the impact of the feature you want or the product you wanted to create is probably different. They are viewing it differently, and they are probably not using some features. They're probably expecting something else, right? So that sort of makes it very, very important. Yeah, Sanket, why don't you go ahead?
The most important skill.
Yeah, most important skill.
I think execution is the most important skill to have as an APM, because when you're just starting out, at least the first couple of months,
Execution trumps everything. That is true. Yes.
So in the first few months at least, you're not expected to come up with big ideas or launch big projects. Although you'll be encouraged, but a lot of it will be some senior PM or someone higher up in your telling you, okay, this is what we've done so far. And then just to get you into the machine, get you running, they'll give you some smaller projects. I would say, okay, why don't you just execute this initially? So that then it's not a lot about product ideation. It's about getting to actually work with the team, talk to the engineers, talk to data, and just actually see a project to completion. So I think execution is something that is very important. And once you get the hang of that, then the big picture stuff and all of that will come naturally.
Swati, what do you think? What's the most important skill? Or you can repeat any of these skills.
I think just the willingness to learn. At some point, you have to accept that you're like in front of the people you're working with. You're dumb and you need to learn a lot. So I think that would help a lot. And if you accept that yes, you are dumb, then I think you won't shy away from asking questions.
I think that solves all of these problems, right? And that sort of decreases the friction between you calling customers out. There's a lot of friction I've noticed, right?
Yeah.
People shy away from dialing a number and talking to any stranger. That is one common trend I've noticed, especially in product management.
Yeah.
But it is the most important for them to talk to customers. So I think willingness to learn. Yeah.
Coach approach is like a very important skill in a lot of.
So I think so for this particular conversation today, I just reached out to 4 people. 3 of you and 1 person is in Chandigarh. He's not here. He's agreed So I've just reached out to 4 people, all 4 people agreed. So that's the kind of, if I would not have reached out to you, I would have never known, right? If you would be available for today's discussion.
Yeah.
So it's only about reaching out. It's only about trying that, taking that first step.
You have an amazing success rate then.
100%.
Alright. What's your favorite product management tool?
JPD, Jira Product Discovery.
Of course.
No, okay. Not your company. The product should be of some other startup or company.
Okay, if that's a constraint, then let me see.
Otherwise, you'll say Flipkart app, you'll say Grow app.
You mean product
No.
or
No,
product
sorry.
management?
Product management tool. So JPD is a product management tool.
JPD is a tool. And yeah.
Yeah, and we are using it. But okay, let me think of something while you guys.
Yeah, so I think for me, Notion probably is really good. Mixpanel is also, so I think for documentation, Notion is the best. For all kinds of analytics, I feel Mixpanel sort of gives you everything to start with. To start your conversations, to build your funnels, to sort of understand how the product is performing. So I think Mixpanel for me is the best. What about you guys?
I think it's the basic stuff. Google Sheets and Google Docs is like what I spend 70% of my time on usually. So,
and I think that will be the case for all of us, right? Except you maybe.
Yeah, we use a lot of Jira Conference in our day-to-day work as well. So that's why it's a little hard for me to think of products which are not actually products.
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, but so like if you need to think clearly, just streamline your own thoughts, or need to explain to someone with a one-pager. Google Docs is like my go-to, right? It's very easy to just bang out a document and be clear in your own thinking.
I think any design tools, because currently I have to, as is popular that you have to wear many hats in a PM. So currently I have to do a lot of design work, and I don't have access to Figma, so any design tools would be my go-to. And of course, as Sanket mentioned, Google Docs, Google Sheets, just to jot down your thoughts. But I like Notion better than Google Docs.
Right. Understood. So you don't use these design tools, right?
No, I use these design tools.
So for example, Figma you don't have access to.
So I don't have access to the company's
Okay.
Figma. I usually go to a tool called Visily,
Okay.
which is very easy to use. So I spend a lot of my time on that, and Notion any day on Google Docs.
Yeah, for me, most of our time is spent in conference, and then Miro is one, which we use on day to day. And it is easy to capture ideas on one area, and you can just put them at once, and you can organize them. You can also make tiny wireframes with Miro, which is very easy. So that's something I love to use, and it comes very intuitive to me. So yeah.
So it's like a whiteboard sort of.
Yeah, it's a whiteboarding tool, but at the same time, you can also use it to even prepare slides, presentations, and even prepare some wireframes which are typically of a low to medium fidelity, which is kind of nice.
Understood. So all of you guys are working on products, right? If your product was a celebrity, let's say, which one would it be? Now I'll give you an option. We can probably select a celebrity or an emoji. Both of these are tough, but yeah, I mean. So in case of Jira, I have something in mind, but I will. So I think in my case, I'll start. So Udaan Capital app is what I'm looking at, right? Capital is the lending arm of Udaan, the credit arm of Udaan. So the product relates a lot to Pankaj Tripathi because he's been in those roles. Essentially, he's in. So my understanding is in most of the movies or series he appears in, he is sort of portrayed as a typical villager sort of a person or a small town kind of a person, and that sort of relates to our customers as well. That's why I would choose Pankaj Tripathi.
Okay. So for me, the team that I work with, as I said, deals a lot with customer advocates and partners. There's one celebrity Could it be a character from movie?
Yeah.
I think it would be Rocket Singh because like my team is called the Commerce Front Office team, which is the customer facing department inside commerce. And yeah, like the personas that use our products, like these are partners and customer advocates, both of which like interact with customers like salesmen, and they make sure that the customers have a good UX with our billing platform, and they also like generate revenue. So yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I think I'm going to stay Rocket Singh because growth is and acquisition is mostly about selling to people. This is a good app, use it, or telling people, tell your friends to use this app. So not only do you need to have a good product, you also need to be able to sell it and have that trust factor. Okay, this is something I can trust my money. Someone I can trust my money. So I think there is some sales aspect to growth, and Rocket Singh is a very good example.
Why don't you go with the Wolf of the Wall Street then?
We don't dupe our customers. No?
Bad kind of sense.
Like if that's the case, then we are making good money for the organization, but
yeah,
at the cost of UX, perhaps.
Right.
I would like to say Johnny Depp because it's a very versatile product. I think you would see it in many ways. So yes.
Yeah, understood. No, I think that makes sense. Yes. Okay. So, what's one superpower that would have helped you in your role? One thing you wanted to be really good at, but you're not, of course.
Yeah.
And that will really help in your overall growth as an APM.
Mm-hmm. I think I have a very ready answer to this. It would be to make duplicates of myself. Like there was this alien in Ben 10, no?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I remember.
Ditto.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I really need that because like there are usually 2, 3, 4 streams of work that I'm like working on, and I have to like allocate my time to each of them during the day. And if I had like 3, 4 copies of myself, I could have done things very easily, and one copy could have like gone and hung out with friends. So.
Yeah.
For me, I think it would be to be able to hypnotize everyone so that I could manage my stakeholders very easily.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
You can still try it.
I can.
I think conviction and communication is like a superpower I would really like to have, because there have been times where you're in a meeting and it's with someone who is way higher up the ladder, and you're trying to convince them, but as soon as there is a question that is asked to you, your confidence sort of crumbles, especially if you're early in your career. I think this has happened with me multiple times, where if you're pitching something and someone asks you a question you're not prepared for, you sort of lose track of what was happening, and that has happened with me a lot. So I think more conviction in my own ideas and my ability to communicate that, like hypnotize people, would be a very good superpower to have.
Right. And I also feel the same way. I think confidence is one thing I lack. Because when, let's say, a chief business officer comes to you, or let's say a very senior product VP comes to you, let's say, right? Then they ask a question and we know the answer. But sometimes we're not very confident on that. So I think that is one piece of the puzzle that I'm sort of lacking in.
An anti-imposter syndrome of sorts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. True. Yes. And okay, how do you stay organized? And sort of because as you mentioned, right, you would want to create copies of yourself.
Yeah.
You would want to manage your workload more effectively. But obviously, you're doing something wrong and something right as well, right?
Yeah.
So how are you sort of managing your time at this point in time?
For me, it has been always sort of a battle to be more organized. Because starting out, I was given only like 1 to 2 streams of work that I had to like look at. Now it is slowly increasing as I am like more aware of what's happening in my work. So first of all, I tried making a to-do list, but that did not really work because you sort of attack the things on a to-do list which are easy and not the things which are urgent and important and which are tough. So I try two things now. One is to block some time of calendar as focused work and say, okay, I won't have any meetings here. And when I do that, I try to make sure that that I book a focus room in my office, or and at the same time, like, make sure that there are little to no distractions. That is one. Other thing is that I've started to use Trello a bit more. Like, you can use any Kanban tool if you want, but yeah, I use Trello to have these multiple columns where I put some card with all the links thrown at it. So, for example, if there is an explore activity, which is a research activity before engineering takes over. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of writing documentation that is there. So I try to keep a bunch of links in that Trello card, and let's say if I want to use do that particular bit of work, I'll just take it up, and I have all the things around that topic that I'm working on that same card. So that helps me a lot. It's a little hard to give you a very strong visual of that, but I try to organize them into what is important for this week and what is sort of important but there's no deadline to it, and and what is already done. So sometimes if let's say something done requires a lot more refining, I take it back to the things to do for this week. So something of that. So I'm experimenting with it. So yeah, it's always a work in progress. You cannot really nail it on the first go. That's what I think.
I think I'll steal that, the Trello cards thing.
So, okay, you are using Trello cards as well.
No, I'm not using that.
Yeah.
I said that I will try to use
Okay.
that. That sounds like a good idea.
And I'm being a good PM here.
Yeah, because time is a resource that you need to manage.
So you use Trello.
Yeah, you are a product manager and you're managing the product that you're managing is time. Or let's say the product you're managing is how to use Trello more efficiently. So that is, yeah, but what do you presently use to sort of manage your time? Like, how do you stay organized presently at this point?
So I think life at Flipkart is pretty balanced. So I don't struggle a lot with time as such, but mostly I try to organize my time on calendars. So as you said, I block focus time and I write down what all I want to do in that particular chunk of time, and that mostly helps me.
I think, see, my schedule is not very heavy on meetings. Like, I have 3-4 meetings a day. But staying organized, the biggest thing that helped me was just write it down, which is a very undervalued piece of advice, just because of how easy it seems. Okay, write it down, no need, I'll remember. But what happens is you're working on one project, and then that becomes 2, that becomes 3, and then there are 3 PRDs you're writing, one project which is in development, and one where you need to look at data.
Yeah.
And there are 5 things you need to do, and something is bound to slip your mind, right? It's not a shortcoming, it's just how the human mind works. And if you write everything down, you can just refer back, okay, these are the things I need to do. And having a sort of checklist or like a weekly, this is what I want to do this week sort of list is very helpful. That is how I stay organized.
And that's the same for me as well. So I have this Google sheet called Udan Timeline, and I sort of document everything, or at least the top few things I do every week, every day essentially. It's at a day level. I have this sheet in front of me. There's a sheet called Timeline. There's a sheet called Things I Learned and Valuable Resources, Upskilling. So these are the kinds of sheets that I have within this Google sheet. I try to document all that I've done. I try to document things that I need to do next, the projects I'm working on. So documentation for me is the biggest factor, biggest thing that sort of helped me stay organized. And I've been doing this since I think the last 2 or 3 years in all my internships, all the projects I've been documenting. There are different Google Sheets for each of these. And this has been really, really helpful. So even after, let's say, 1 year, I go back, sort of, even while building my resume also, right? It's sort of, I know what I've done there. I can refer back to the sheet and I can sort of bring out all the good points and put them in my resume. Or let's say, describe to someone what I've done at Udan. All that really helps. So I think documentation for me was very helpful. All right. Now, how do you stay up to date with the latest industry trends? For example, you must have used ChatGPT as well in your current role, right? So, how do you stay up to date?
I mean, sometimes it's you sort of have to push yourself in some way to be able to like, stay up to date at times. What I do is I think Twitter is one very easy way to stay up to date with everything happening. Even though you can't really get into the depths of things with Twitter, you can still be you at least have an idea. Okay, this is something that is happening, and if you are interested in something, you can dive deeper. Uh, and yeah, there's like I am subscribed to a couple of Substack newsletters, which like, talk a bit more in depth of let's say things that are happening. For example, AI. What are the implications of let's say AI on let's say product management? That is one big topic of discussion inside our company as well as on product management circles on Twitter or on Reddit. So uh, yeah, I think those are the two channels which I generally use. And once you start to read these things a bit more, you'll get more recommendations of similar types. So whenever you check your phone, you can just at least get a gist of what's happening, any big news, anything of that sort. TechCrunch is also I think one interesting resource which tells you okay, this company got funded, this company got acquired, whatever.
So, who are the top two people you follow on Twitter?
Uh,
Two or three, any name that comes to your mind that has been helpful in the past.
so lately I'm not using a lot of Twitter, so but I
Elon Musk, maybe.
no, I don't follow Elon Musk because like either if you have Elon Musk in your timeline, you'll either have shit posts on your timeline or you'll have like very weird political annoying things which are really not that good, like very opinionated things. I would say Steve Sinofsky is one. So he was like leading the Microsoft Windows initiatives back in the day. He launched Windows Vista and also the initial versions of MS Office. So he has a newsletter and sometimes he also tweets on the current happenings. Let's say with big tech, mostly Microsoft and the competitors. So that is I think very helpful. Apart from that, like we also have a Slack of everything like thrown at us. Sometimes someone shares a interesting Twitter thread. As for Twitter, I also remember Sajid Pai. He is I think one of the VCs, a very reputed VC in India. So he also like shares some things in his newsletter or sometimes in a tweet format. So yeah, that's.
I think for me, I've been using LinkedIn for a long time now, and I'm very regular at it. And I follow some well-known product folks as well, right? For example, Shreyas Doshi,
Yeah, shares.
and I follow him on Twitter as well as on LinkedIn. Even Naval Ravikant on Twitter is sort of one of the guys I've really gotten a lot of inspiration from.
Shares is more about owning product craft and
Yeah.
how do you do your work well.
Correct.
Things like
And
that.
Naval is more towards life in general.
Yeah, he's more into forward-looking stuff,
Yeah.
10 years down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, LinkedIn has been definite. And I'm in fintech. I want to keep abreast of the latest trends and everything going on there, right? So I sort of read your story articles as well regularly. And yeah, I mean, whenever there's a new guideline that's coming up, that has come up, RBI has recently introduced a new guideline or something, I sort of go back to the RBI website and read the documents. So earlier this was a bit difficult, but now that I've read a few documents, it has become slightly easier for me to understand. So that's about fintech and product in general. Yes.
I think talking to engineers is how I keep up with latest tech trends. So one great piece of advice my manager gave me was always have lunch with the engineers. It not only does it increase your bonding with them,
I'll write that down. That's really helpful, I think.
and yeah, it increases rapport, but also you learn about what they are working on, like advancements in tech. So like you mentioned ChatGPT. I had a very brief idea of what ChatGPT is, but then once I went for coffee with one of the engineering managers, and I asked him how he is using ChatGPT. And we had like a half an hour, 45-minute conversation just on how he is using it and how he sees it being, played out in the future. So I think talking to engineers, because obviously they'd be more up to date on tech developments than you will be, is a great way to keep up with all of these trends.
Yeah. Even better is like going out for drinks with engineers. So that like if you are really prioritizing bonding over anything else. Right.
I will not go there because that's another topic of discussion altogether.
Yeah.
Bangalore is also famous for the party culture, right? So that's another topic. But
So I think for me it would be to just have a discussion in the APM cohort because people in the cohort are spread across different functions in the entire company. So you get to you get a brief idea about what is happening in which function of the entire company. I think that gives you a very good idea about how e-commerce runs, how things function. If you need any information, you can just reach out to any of your friends from the batch. So that would be, I think, the primary source.
understood. So it's a rotational program. That's my understanding. And you sort of spend 6 months in one team.
No, 1 year,
1 year in
one
team.
team and the next year in the other.
Understood. Got it. So it's a 2-year program. In the first year you are an APM 1. In the second year you are APM 2.
Yes.
And then you
You're a PM.
PM. And since you mentioned ChatGPT, sort of, has it helped you in your role, or have you sort of thought about it at least, or have you started using it? Because I remember I helped my head of business plan a trip to Netherlands using ChatGPT, but that is outside my role.
Yeah.
So, but I think for a number of use cases, I have used ChatGPT in my current role. What about you guys?
Yeah, for me, I have like thought a lot about using ChatGPT for a bunch of things in my role, but most of the times I spent doing random stuff, like trying to like battle test it and use
Yeah.
prompts to provoke it. I do a lot of that. I would also like I'll show you sometime.
So in your role, you've not really used.
Yeah, but like if you want to get a list of let's say competitors, I think that is very good. If you let's say give me competitors for so and so product, let's say and the product is the product that we are working on, it can list down a bunch of 5, 6, 10 different competitors to your product. So I did not even know like it listed down 15 different competitors for Jira, and I did not even know like more than half of them, which was like pretty interesting. So that and like there are some things that you can't get out of Google right away. Like
True.
ChatGPT they really format it well, and also if you let's say want to draft messages, like it can be very helpful.
I think I've not used it for my work as such, but as he mentioned, I've tried some crazy shit with it, asking it existential questions. So yeah, I'm yet to use it for my role. Let's see.
I've used it to generate ideas. So like if I'm working at reference, I say, okay, what are non-financial incentives I can give to users? Or if I'm making like a referral campaign manager, what all attributes should a campaign manager have? And it'll give you 1 or 2 things that you might have missed out on and you didn't think of. So that's what I primarily use it for, just generate ideas, and it'll have a few that you can actually end up using.
So I just mentioned that I have used it. I forgot to give an example. So in my case, I've used it for product marketing mostly, right? Similar to your use case. So let's say I've drafted a very initial set of marketing messages, and we sort of I sort of use ChatGPT to help me fine tune it, make it more creative, right? So that's what I've used for. Okay, what are you reading these days, guys? Are you reading anything first of all? If you are, then what are you reading?
I'm reading PRDs these days, a lot of them. Yeah, but like sometimes if I get the time, I try to like read some fiction.
What?
Yeah, I think that sort of relaxes you. That is one big things served out of it.
Which genre?
Is this the creators meetup?
No.
This is growth school or
No.
Oh, so sorry. My bad.
And guys, that's what happens when you're in Bangalore. Growth school guys come up and ask. So there are creators meetups happening everywhere, and this is what happens if you are in Bangalore.
So as for fiction, I read a lot of science fiction these days. I recently, I was reading, started with 1984. Before this, I was reading Fahrenheit 451. That's an amazing book. That has a very good narrative to it, and also sort of shows how tech at last can be like powerful and be a very huge driver of change for the next 15-20 years. And it was written in 1950, and what it says sort of holds true today, and it has become even more relevant by today's standards. Given that it's a 70-year-old book, that is sort of astonishing to me. How accurate can he be when he talks about the concepts of censorship and like mass surveillance, things like that. So,
What about you guys?
I have not been reading anything lately. I think the last thing I read was, I think it was The Secret of Nagas, which, and it has been a long time since I read
Amish
that.
Tripathi.
Yeah, by Amish Tripathi. So I think the next book which I would like to pick up should be something of, I think mythology fusion is something which interests me. I would like to pick up something of that sort. But yes, as of now.
I mostly read non-fiction, and I read like 2-3 books at once because I can't focus on one book. So right now I'm reading 2 books. The first one is Influence is Your Superpower, which is a really good book about how to convince people or basically be more convinced in your own ideas and then communicate them better.
this Robert Cialdini.
No, that's just Influence.
Okay.
This is Influence is Your Superpower.
Okay.
This is, I think the author is Zoe Chance. And the second is this graphic novel adaptation of Sapiens. Because I tried going through the normal text version of Sapiens and it was too much for me. So now I'm reading the graphic novel version.
Why don't you use ChatGPT to summarize it?
I can.
Like if you want the summarized version, or let's say the abridged version, then you can.
I could.
It's like watching a movie review from instead of a movie.
Just read
It's no fun.
So I installed this ChatGPT plugin, and I used it on my YouTube channel. It summarized all those videos within 1 or 2 paragraphs. So there's on every icon, video icon, there's the GPT option. If you have installed the plugin, so just click on that and you will get the summary of the video, entire video, like 1 hour or something. And this is GPT 3 only. Like GPT 4 will be even better. I'm not using
Yeah,
it.
it's better for you. But yeah, like what's the fun in that?
Obviously.
Yeah, like if you like slowly have your lunch and you're like watching a video on the side, that's sort of enjoyment to me. Otherwise, if you consume too much information, you don't even remember half of it.
True.
Like
Just for the sake of consuming information.
yeah, I mean yeah. So
Yeah, I'm reading 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. It's sort of about growing your startup or growing your product in general. And I've recently, I think last month, I completed the mom test, which was totally about talking to customers. How do you talk more effectively to customers, and what are the questions you need to ask, mostly around that. Alright, so if you realize you're sort of moving away from product, and this is a customary question, what are if we talk about non-product related hobbies or activities, right? What are you into these days?
all of us have common. I think we have a common hobby between us,
Yes.
which is music.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So all 3 of us happen to sort of sing and
I play the guitar.
Yeah, play the guitar. Yeah,
Okay.
important.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, you play a guitar. What do you play?
I play the ukulele and the keyboard.
Guitar and ukulele sometimes.
I have to learn something.
Yeah. now you tell us what do we do.
Yes.
Yeah, reading books is one definitely, but it's mostly about writing in my case, I think.
Yeah.
I write blogs whenever I have time. I sort of record YouTube videos.
Nice.
Although it's been about 4-5 months since I recorded the last one, but I sort of think about it. So thinking is one of my hobbies.
Yeah, actually for me as well. Like I have a blog that I write whatever comes to my mind. I'm like trying to like start this sort of tech newsletter, like directed toward Gen Zs, but
I'll
I'm
be
not
an early
really-
subscriber for sure.
Yeah, like, if I take out one post, that is, like I'm like working on incomplete drafts, and I've been working on incomplete drafts since the last 2-3 months, and I'm not getting the time to like, work on it. But I really want to get into that.
So if I divide your day into 3 parts,
Okay.
first one would be your job, of course.
Mhm.
That would be how much percentage of your time. Then the second part would be music in your case, I guess.
Yeah.
That would probably be around 10-20% of the time.
Yeah.
And what's the third part?
Sleep.
No, sleep is obviously there. Food, sleep is there.
Music is not all that regular for me. I mean, it's on and off. It's like if there's a weekend and I don't have anything to do, I'll just pick up my ukulele and play and try something out. Usually, like my work hours are a little weird these days because we have a very distributed teams across geographies. So, the team that I work with, the design team is in Australia. So we have early meetings with them, and then the engineering team is in India. So like some afternoon time is spent over there, and then after that, the business folks and the sales ops, all of these teams are in the US. So like I have meetings across. Sometimes I try to like bunch them to one side of my day. Sort of, I try to like keep them at such a cadence that I finish up with them within a couple of hours. But yeah, so sometimes it's not that easy. But for me, it's mostly like work and then gym, and then come back and be tired and sleep.
Right. Understood. Okay, so it's not a work from home thing. In your case, it's offline.
No, it's actually we are a remote first company, so most like all my work happens on the laptop. But I go to the office because it's a different experience altogether. You tend to like collaborate in the real world better, and you sort of get more context to what you're doing when you're talking to engineers informally. If you're going out on lunch with them, so that really helps. At least like if you are an early career PM, that it is very advisable to even if you have a remote first job, you go to an offline setting and you like work with people.
So I think if there's one takeaway I have from this entire conversation, that is this: that we need to sort of interact outside of the work as well with these people, with the
Yeah,
engineers. With so I think the best things I've learned were at parties. These senior business folks or senior PMs.
Yeah.
The best advice I got was definitely during one of these celebratory parties or at one of the lunches.
Yeah, you absorb a lot of culture. Like for me, it was I was working from a remote setting for the first 6-7 months of my job, and then I came here. I recently shifted here, not in a while, like I think a couple of months only. And yeah, since then I've noticed that I know how the company operates, what is acceptable, what is not. How do you like talk to people, and how do you get work done, and what is the velocity of work that is usually expected of you. So all of these things you only get when you like talk to people outside of a work setting. You absorb the culture better. I think absorbing the culture of a company and seeing if it's a fit for you, that is one of the most important things.
Understood. What about you? What's like? How does your time look like?
So I usually start my day at about 10. I will leave the office somewhere between 7 to 9. So yeah, that leaves out about 2-3 hours where I talk to my friends, play some music, do whatever. Weekends are like free usually, so that is when I actually go out, socialize, do all of that. So, but even like socializing is a huge part of the job also. So like even if I'm at the office, I'll spend maybe an hour talking to people, socializing. So it's not like a continuous block of work, right? It's broken up into bits. So if you're going out for lunch with your team, or you're just going for coffee. So yeah, all of that does happen. So it's not like I'm continuously working.
Apart from work, I think I do some amount of music every day. Like I might not create something, but I used to be singing. Talking to my friends, watching something, going to the gym, preparing for my meals. That would mostly make up the rest of my time. Sleeping.
Yes, sleeping is important.
Sleeping is, I think,
You realize how underrated it is after
Yeah.
you reach 22, first 22 days.
you
I feel
mean
what
when
it
one
means
starts the job.
Yes.
I feel like after graduating from college, it's a different world altogether. That we live in.
Yeah. Earlier sleep was, I think, not a necessity.
Yeah,
it
it's
was a
not-
luxury. But now sleep is a necessity. That is what has changed for me in terms of sleep.
We would be pulling off all-nighters left, right, and center. I mean,
Yeah.
3 days without sleep.
No problem.
Yeah. You really need it because you feel the effect of it 1 or 2 days afterwards. So if you have a very rough Sunday, your Monday and Tuesday, yeah, let's get the process.
So in my case as well, I think the entire tech team is a remote first team
Mhm.
at Udaan. So my role is completely work from home, but I go to office every day just because I work faster in office.
Yeah.
Essentially, everything gets done really fast because we just go to someone and we sort the issue, right? And I think in product management this is really helpful as well.
Yeah.
Instead of scheduling meetings for each and every small task, we would just say hello to someone in the office and sort of within a 2 minute conversation that thing would be sorted. Otherwise, you'll have to block 30 minutes of his time. Right? That is, I think, the thing that changes in a work from home versus a work from office setting, especially in product. Yeah. For example, engineers might not really need to come to office that frequently, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of in product, I think that is really there. All right. The last question for today, guys, is what would be the advice you would give to aspiring PMs or PMs who are just starting out in their role? It can be one single piece of advice, or it can be an overall outlook towards the role. So that's up to you, or maybe even learning a new skill.
I never expected that I would be giving out advices.
Yes.
Yeah, but guys, I think you are setting up a very good example. We are starting out from so APM role was definitely very few people knew about this role, and very recently this has really caught up in India.
Mhm.
We've seen Google APM roles very. So I think 2008 or 9 was when they launched this role.
Yeah.
Around that time. But in India, Flipkart was the first one to launch a full-fledged APM program. That was in 15 or 16. Arindam Mukherjee started it, right? And he is in Next Leap now. So I think this is not a very. This culture is in its nascent stages only.
Yeah.
So what would be the advice you would give?
Take initiatives. I think that is one big one because like even if you're preparing for your role, you have to take initiatives. You have to show up a product year-round contest. You need to like put your work out there so that people can see it. Like sometimes you can end up working in your own little silo and expect people to reach out to you because you are talented, but that doesn't happen in real life. For example, I got my job through an off-campus setting, so I know that you have to like make some effort not only to hone your skills but at the same time show your skills, which is I think one important thing. And even when you start out with your job, it is important to take initiative, to talk to people, take up work on your own because like for us, like starting out, so people are so busy that they won't bother asking you like how is your progress and things like that very frequently. So you have to like keep showing up in front of their faces so that they remember, okay, this is a new APM that has come to our team, and like it is then they sort of pay more attention to you, and you start contributing in some meaningful way. So I think taking initiatives is definitely a part of product growth because like even when you're looking ahead for your product, you're making roadmaps and stuff, you have to like initiate conversations and lead those conversations, and that is very important.
Right. I think for me, the most important piece of advice I would give is to make yourself to be more useful. So if you are getting things done and you're getting them done fast, so I think that is one thing that not many people try to do. Even if it's not your own role, right? If you're probably helping someone else out and sort of moving forward, people reach out to you. They know that right, this is the guy, and we can reach out to him for any of our blockers. Right, that's the time you prove yourself to be useful within product or within any other area, right? I think that is one piece of advice I would give. What about you guys?
Aspiring PMs, I would just say practice a lot of mocks. I think that is the one piece of advice I give everyone who wants to interview for a PM job. Have at least 15-20 mocks that you have under your belt and then go, interview for an actual job. For people who are just starting out, I would say just communicate, talk to as many people as you can and improve your own communication skills. So talk to people in your team, talk to people outside your team, engineers, designers, analytics, other PMs, talk to everyone, talk to the leadership, talk to your users a lot. I think once you have that context, it's a lot easier to do your job. But a lot of us get so caught up in our day-to-day, okay, this is what I have to do. We forget to sort of zoom out and get a bigger picture. And talking to others really helps in that. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think for me, as Sanket said, to crack the interview, I think you need to do as many mocks as possible. So that would be the advice. But on the role as an APM, I think it would be that do not be shy, because you're put in a room with people who have a lot of experience, 10, 20, 25 years of experience, and you're put in the same room with them. So it's very easy to get intimidated. And especially if a person like me, I'm an introvert, so if a person like me is put in that setting, it's very natural to go into your shell. So at some point, I think you should battle that tendency and just put your thoughts out there, no matter how silly it might sound. So, yeah.
Great. I think it was a great conversation. Thanks a lot, guys, for taking out the time today. And these are the guys we will see in the next few years. These will be the senior PMs, leading companies, all of that. So this, I think, is a great way to set an example also. And there are very few resources around discussions on APM roles, what's there in early stage PM roles, right? So yeah, I think this was an initiative to sort of tackle that issue. A lot of people reached out to me to create such videos, so that this is an attempt to do that as well. So yeah, and thanks a lot for sparing the time out today. It was great talking to you. Yeah, thanks again.